Dig this.
Hello, everyone. I was just chatting with people coming in. Man, we have people from Brazil, Italy, Nigeria, uh, Iran. Gosh, you guys are staying up late in some places. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited. Every week when I have a new live stream, I get really excited about it. Is anybody going to show up? What if people don't know about the live stream? And then I have like all these people. Venezuela, welcome. And I see some familiar faces. I know Sylvia from Italy through Instagram. Ellison from Brazil was here the last time. I think Adrian, I think we chatted in the comments. It's really exciting to see people coming back. It makes me feel like, what I'm doing is adding value to your language learning experiences and your language experience in general. So before we get into the content, I have some, the usual announcements right quick. First of all, thank you very much for joining us today. If you're coming in, say hello. And Agape from New York, she stayed up late last night watching videos. Thank you very much for joining us. As you come in, if you want to say hello and say your name and, well, your name, not your name, where you're from. Also, some channel updates. Well, I've just been working really hard to keep up with the growth of the channel. The channel continues growing a lot, which makes me, of course, really happy. I've been getting a lot of new subscribers every day. When I first started the channel, it took me forever to get to 100 subscribers. And now I get 100 subscribers sometimes like in a day. So that's validation for my work. And I really appreciate everyone joining the channel, becoming members, liking the videos, commenting on the videos, and so forth. I really appreciate that. Please hit the like button now. I know I hate to ask this, but there's something about YouTube. When you start liking a live stream, YouTube will let people know that we're on. During the presentation, I will be focused on the content, but feel free to chat with each other even when I'm talking. Just make sure to be civil. I usually don't have any problems with my subscribers. I think people are really polite in comments and so forth. But, I feel like I should say that. Again, I'll be focused on the content during the presentation, but feel free to ask questions. I will have times when I'll stop and I'll pay more attention to the chat. If you ask a question and I don't notice it, just ask again when I open it up for questions and answers. Remember, you can help me by sending me a super chat or a super sticker. Under the chat box there, you see the $sign. That's a way that you can send me a super chat. When you send a super chat, I can hear it. So even if I'm talking here, I can hear a little chime, and I will look at the screen to see who sent it. So it's a way for you to show appreciation. Also, please consider becoming a member. When you become a member, you get some additional perks. I'm still in the phase of developing perks. So if you become a member now, you're on the ground floor. You're going to be seeing more and more coming up. I already have a few people join the channel. Some are there just to support the channel, which I think is great. Some are there because they want a linguist to help them, and that is what I'm here for. I've been a teacher for a long time, a college professor, and I really enjoy working with people that are interested in learning. I'm on Instagram and Twitter if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Sylvia, who's in the room here, I met her through Instagram. It was really cool. We chatted on Instagram a few times. She's a great supporter. All right, so let's get going. Let me start take a quick look at the chat here. Okay, so today we're talking about the right motivation for second language learning. You may have noticed that I have right between quotes there because, well, we'll talk more about it when you say, no, what is the right motivation for second language learning? Well, it depends on the individual. For some people, one type of motivation can be very helpful for them to learn. For somebody else, the same motivation might not work very well. So we'll learn a lot of things today about motivation and see if that helps you. So what are we doing today? Where we're going to be talking about motivational factors in second language learning. We'll discuss how your motivation, or the different types of motivation, and what you do with your motivation can have both positive and negative effects in your language learning and learning your target language. We'll also talk about how to identify your current motivation and how you can perhaps adjust your language learning goals based on your motivation or vice versa. Okay, a lot of people are not even aware of motivation. People say, "Oh, I'm not motivated today. I'm not motivated today." But what does that mean? Okay, when you talk about a task, your job, learning a language, learning a new skill, what different types of motivation are there, and what is your motivation right now? Are you even aware of what's going on? What we're not doing is, I do not sell snake oil. I am not going to tell you, do this and that's it. All your problems will be solved. There are no quick fixes. Usually in life, right? There are no quick fixes. And if somebody sells you quick fixes, they just want your money, okay? And also, I'm not going to give you a one-size-fits-all solutions. What I tell one person, maybe this could help you. It may not work for the next person. So you need to figure out on your own, and I will help you, of course, but you need to figure out what is best for you. Hey, Suleiman, thanks for following the Instagram account. I don't post very much on my Instagram account, but I'm working on that. That's one of the things that I've been working on, to start posting there more often. Some quick definitions. Last week we talked about L2. You will see L2 in slides. And when you read about language acquisition, many times you will see L2 or target language. That's whatever language you're learning. So your L1 is what you consider to be your mother language or your native language. When they talk about the L2 or the TL, the target language, that's whatever language you're learning. I know a lot of people in the room are learning English as a second language, so English would be your target language. But if you're learning Italian or French or Arabic, that's your target language. And when you learn a language and you learn the next, the processes are very similar. Learning a language is learning a language pretty much. Also keep in mind that there are different learning contexts. So perhaps you're living in the United States and you need to learn English as a second language, as an additional language, so you can communicate with people in the community. Or you're living in a country where English is not spoken, for example, and you're learning English. So you're learning English as a foreign language, okay? And of course, if you're living in the country, you have more access to resources, to other speakers who speak English. You may not have the same type of access, at home if people don't speak English in your country. So just keep that in mind, okay? So what is motivation? So everybody says, "Oh, I don't feel motivated today." But what does that mean? So in everyday usage, motivation is whatever drives or compels you to do something, or to choose to do something. Okay. That's what I just said. When people say, "Oh, I don't feel motivated today," that's what people are saying. Okay, I don't feel compelled to do something, or I don't have the drive to do it. But mostly, we'll be talking about what psychologists understand as motivation. In psychology, it is the urge to behave in a way that satisfies wishes, desires, or goals. Okay, so it's an internal urge that you have to satisfy a wish, desire, or goal. The very, very simple example is if you're thirsty, well, you feel compelled to get up, stop what you're doing, and drink some water, okay? Because you want to satisfy that desire, that need to quench your thirst. So there's also this biological component to motivation. I'm thirsty, I need to drink water. But it can also have, all these different components: an emotional component, social, cognitive. So all these processes are involved in motivation. For example, a social process would be where, in your community, people have a desire, or they are driven to doing something in a particular way. Then you, as part of that society, you feel compelled to engage in that too. So these biological, emotional, social, and cognitive processes initiate, shape, and maintain goal-oriented behaviors. Okay, so this has to do with, I have a goal, I want to achieve something, and all these processes, these biological, emotional, cognitive processes, get you started to accomplish that goal, okay? Or to shape it, okay? How do you go about accomplishing that goal? Or how do you maintain it? A lot of times I see that with my students. They have great desires at the beginning of a semester. They're all excited. And towards the middle of the semester, many students start, I don't feel like coming to class. When is this going to be over? So they had that initial drive to accomplish a goal, but they didn't maintain it. And it usually has to do with something that's going on that's changing their motivation. They went from being very excited, compelled to do something, to losing an interest, or being demotivated because they're not accomplishing their goals fast enough, and so forth. And in language acquisition, that's very, very, very common. Okay, people start learning a language, they're all excited. After a few months, they don't see the progress they expected. Their motivation goes from excitement to, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't want this to happen to you. Okay, if you're here, if you're watching this live stream, that's because you want to learn a language, whether it's English, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, or whatever, right? Okay, so motivation, according to psychologists, are broken down into drives and motives. Okay, drives are primarily biological. Like hunger drives you to do things, right? People don't want to be hungry, so they know that if they don't work, if they don't get up in the morning and go do whatever they need to do, they will go hungry or thirst. So these are basic needs. The need to reproduce. Okay, motives are more social and psychological mechanisms. So your family, your relationships, work, your social status. These create motives. For social status, for example, if you want more social status, that's something that's not a biological need, social status, but it's a human need sometimes, right? Depending on your society, you want to feel accomplished, you want to have a higher social status. Well, that motivates you. That's a motive for you to go get an education, work hard, do whatever it takes for you to increase your social status. Okay, work. Unfortunately, work sometimes drives a lot of our motives. Okay, why do you get up in the morning, get dressed, get in the car, and drive to work? Well, because work is compelling you to do that. It's giving you the motive to do something. Okay. But motives and drives can be manipulated by stimuli. When we talk about stimuli, we're talking about something in the environment, something coming from the outside that's stimulating, or that's sending cues that may change your motives and drives. Okay? Let's look at it more closely. So you have internal and external drives. So what I said before, I'm sorry, I said it only half the truth. You have external stimuli, but also internal. For example, social deprivation or desire can motivate us to change our situation. Okay, if you find yourself deprived of human contact, you need friendships, you need to socialize with people, and you're not getting it, it may compel you to do things to change your situation. And deprivation could also mean like financial deprivation. You're in a social state where your needs are not being met. It could be physical needs. They could be emotional needs. So it could be from the outside and from the inside. That motivates you to do something, to change your behavior or do something new. When you introduce a new or realistic challenge, you can motivate yourself to act and change your behavior. Okay, something that you hear a lot in language learning is that people say, "Oh, I don't know. I started learning French and I was very excited, but now it's like, nah, I'm not that interested anymore." Well, you can introduce a challenge for yourself. Okay, say, well, I'm going to set a new goal. Okay, within the next 6 months, I want to be able to complete a whole course and improve my French from here to here. Well, you're introducing a new challenge for yourself. Or it could be something as simple as, I want to learn, 10 new words every day, and I'm going to work really hard. Okay? If it is a realistic challenge, something that you can actually accomplish, introducing that new challenge, that is the stimulus that you're creating to motivate you, change your behavior. It motivates you to act and change your behavior. Oh, here's a biggie. Attitude. When you develop a negative attitude towards the language and culture, you can get really demotivated. Okay, so if you're learning a language and you start creating this I don't know how to explain negative attitude. You just be like, oh, I don't like anything that has to do with a culture anymore. Or you start getting irritated by things that are related to that culture, that the people that speak that language. Well, that negative attitude will stop you from learning any further. Why will you learn a language that irritates you? Okay, that is spoken by people that you don't like. So you need to take a look at yourself and see, no, where are these stereotypes coming from? Why am I treating this culture negatively like that? How can I look at the positive and change my attitude so that I can, continue learning? So all these stimuli that could be internal or external affect how motivated you feel to accomplish a task. There are many different models of motivation in psychology, social psychology, cognitive psychology. I'm going to look at two very quickly, very briefly. If you have an interest, you can do your own research. One is a fairly old and very well accepted model of motivation that started with Gardner and Lambert, started in the late 60s into the 70s and on. They're called integrative and instrumental motivation. So according to Gardner and Lambert, people learn a second language, or an L2, with integrative and instrumental motivations. Okay? The integrative motivation is, for example, when you're living where people speak your target language, you feel you're learning the language. The reason you're learning the language is to integrate, and that's why it's called integrative. You want to integrate yourself into that culture. Okay? You want to learn the language as a means to socialize with the speakers of the language. Okay? So you're not just interested in learning the grammar and vocabulary. You want to actually embrace the culture. You have an interest in the culture. You want to be able to talk to people that speak the language. So when these are your motives, they say, well, you have an integrative motivation. You can also have an instrumental motivation. For example, you're learning a language because it's a job requirement. Oh, I got a new job at this company, and I don't know, it's a Korean company, and they told me I have to learn Korean. That's the only reason you're learning that language. Or there's an entrance exam for college, and you have to pass a language test. You're not learning the language to talk to people, to learn about the culture. You just want to pass that exam. Or you're completing college work. A lot of colleges say, well, you have to select one language and take like 2 semesters in one language. Oh, okay, I'm going to take this language. So you're not learning it because of the culture, because you want to speak with people. You have a more instrumental motivation. Usually we have a little bit of both. We have instrumental motivations and integrative motivations, but you can have more of one or the other. And when you have only, for example, if you have only instrumental, it's kind of unlikely that you're going to be, because you're not interested in the culture. You don't want to talk to people. You just want to learn the grammar and pass the exam, and that's that, right? You're going to learn, but you're not going to be able to do very much with the language because you have only one goal, this instrumental drive to learn the language. Okay, it's a good idea to have a little bit of each. All right, now if there are still people in the room, you guys are very quiet. So, I'm sorry, that should be a question. What is your motivation to start learning your target language? Or what was your motivation? And has your motivation changed? Let me change to... Nope. Here. Ellison already said something here before we got there. So one of my motivations to learn another language is to be a local example of how possible it is to acquire a foreign language without paying a lot of money to have ineffective classes. That's smart. So you want to show that you can do it, right? I can do it. We're going to talk about a second model of motivation that addresses that, Ellison. When you do something because it's a challenge for yourself. Anybody else? So what is your motivation to start learning your target language? And has your motivation changed? Positive attitude of gratitude, that's motivating. Well, that changes your mindset, right? When you have a positive attitude and gratitude and all that. But what I'm saying here is like, what motivates you to specifically learn a particular language? Intellectual curiosity. For me, that's a great motivator. Sometimes I learn a language that's like a year ago or so, I started learning Norwegian. I did not want to learn it well. I didn't want to speak with anyone. I was just curious. I wanted to see how the language works. It's kind of similar to English in many ways. Some of the vocabulary is similar to English and German. So I was like, oh, let me learn a little bit. I learned for 6 months by myself. Didn't spend any money, Ellison. and then I stopped. Maybe one day I'll move beyond just curiosity. For example, if I decide, I want to go to, take a trip to Norway in 6 months, maybe I'll start learning because I'll have an opportunity to go and use the language there. Your motivation changes too. Sylvia, did you say you started learning a target language out of intellectual curiosity? What is your target language, Sylvia? What language are you learning? Can anybody else jump in? When you guys were very talkative at the beginning, so don't stop now. You guys some time to think. Ellison, you're learning English, right? If I remember correctly from the last time. Okay, Agape said, stimulating your brain cells to remain young. That's right. You know, the learning language is a way for you to ward off dementia. Cool. Yeah. So you're doing that as your a way of taking care of yourself and staying intellectually stimulated. That's a good reason to learn a language. Sylvia's learning English. Let's see. Amelia had written something and she deleted it. Okay, so let's move on. See, Harry, being able to communicate effectively with English-speaking people. So, Harry, you have more of an integrative motivation. You're not learning just because you want to know the grammar. You want to actually get in there, use the language for real. Oh, Autopilot rewrote his answer. One of my motivations is to find a relationship between learning the language and learning music. Oh, that's cool. So there are a lot of intellectual people in the room that you want to like really get into it and do really interesting things with it. Talk to my friends. So that would be an integrative motivation to talk to people. Katie Denson, how are you, Katie? Good to see you there. Katie missed the first live, and we chatted, and she said, I'll be there for the second one, and there she is. Thanks for coming, Katie. All right, let's move on then. So this is another type of approach to understanding motivation. It's called the social cognitive view. It was started by Albert Bandura. If you study psychology, you will be studying Bandura. It started like in the 60s, well into the 90s, and people are still learning it in schools. It's a very, very well-known model of motivation. Bandura talks about intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. It says that these determine how you engage in behaviors. So intrinsic and extrinsic, kind of similar to integrative and instrumental in a way, right? There are parallels there. Extrinsic motivation, it comes from within. You're motivated to do something to earn a reward. There's something you want to accomplish, and you're motivated by, I'm sorry, sorry. Extrinsic, outside of you, okay? Okay, I have this turned around. I'm really sorry. All right, so that's why it was not making sense. So that means that I was paying attention. Intrinsic and extrinsic. I'm glad I caught that. It was not making sense in my head. Okay, so intrinsic motivation, it comes from within you. All right, this is really screwed up. I'm really, really sorry. Extrinsic. Comes from outside of you. Okay, you do something because you want to earn a reward, and you do things to avoid punishment or consequences. Okay? And intrinsic comes from within. Okay, now that makes sense. So intrinsic comes from within, and instead of just wanting a reward, you want to have a sense of accomplishment. And I can see from the answers in the room that a lot of you have some intrinsic motivation. You're doing it because you want to just. Learning the language is something that will add value to your life. It's a way for you to take care of yourself. So performing the activity, learning the language, is the reward. You're not expecting something from the outside to reward you. Okay? Here, you do something because you don't want to be punished. For example, why do you go to work and get there on time? Because you love your work, or because you don't want to be punished, right? You don't want the consequence of losing your job, as opposed to having an intrinsic motivation where I love my job, I love what I do, I find it important for me to be here and be part of a team at work. So you go to work, you show up, and you do a good job because doing a good job is enough of a reward for you to do it. Okay? I'm really sorry about the extrinsic, intrinsic there. Let's look at some examples. So extrinsic, so it's coming from the outside. So you're studying to earn a grade, okay? So you don't care about what you're learning. I just want the grade. However, of course, sometimes you do it because you're proud of earning that grade. You get a sense of accomplishment. So it would be an intrinsic motivation, okay? So nothing here is black and white. It depends on how, it depends on the mindset, how you see the reward, how you internalize it or externalize it, okay? You finish a task to meet a deadline. Not because you want to do a good job, you just want to meet a deadline, get it over with, okay? Or you're learning a language as a degree requirement. Why are you learning French? Oh, I needed to learn a language in college and I picked French. Why French? I don't know, I just had to pick one, okay? So you're just doing it as a requirement, okay? As opposed to learning a language for pleasure, like many of you guys are telling me. You want to learn to talk to people, to take care of yourself. See, Pablo said to teach subject that my son is studying in a bilingual school, Spanish and English. Okay, so you kind of have, Pablo, you have an extrinsic and intrinsic. Okay, you want to be a good dad and help your son. So that gives you pleasure to know that you're doing something useful, but you also have an extrinsic motivation to, make sure that your son is getting the help he needs. Okay, now you may hear people say that having an intrinsic motivation is the good one. Okay, if you have an intrinsic motivation, that's the way to go. But that's a little simplistic. Okay. Sometimes having extrinsic or intrinsic motivation, they can be good or bad. So let's look at extrinsic motivations and what's good about them. Okay, so remember, extrinsic means you're expecting an external reward, like a grade, a promotion, something that's coming from outside of you. Well, it's okay to expect an external reward because an external reward can be a source of feedback. Okay, you're learning a language really hard, and your professor pats you on the back and gives you a compliment. Well, that's an external reward, but it's feedback, and then you internalize that, makes you feel good about yourself, and it motivates you to continue doing, studying hard and doing good things. It can also renew an interest. Sometimes an unexpected reward makes you think like, oh gosh, somebody said that, I don't know, my pronunciation in French is really good. Maybe I should go into French again and start learning more. Okay, so you get this external stimulus. Remember, we talked about stimuli changing your motivation. So sometimes this extrinsic motivation can create an interest, or it can be a catalyst. Okay? You start out by, for example, the example I gave about, somebody starts learning a language only because it's a college degree that requires you to learn a language. So you pick a language, you have an extrinsic motivation. Your reward is getting those credit hours for college and nothing more. But then maybe while you're taking the course, you become really interested. And now you change your motivation from extrinsic to intrinsic. Now I really want to learn this. So the reward, getting the credit hours for that course, that was a catalyst for a new interest and a new drive to learn the language. So it's not good or bad. But extrinsic motivations can be bad. For example, they can reduce your interest if you were already interested in that. That's really interesting. There are some studies that found that if someone is already interested in something and you start giving them a lot of positive feedback and say, "Oh, you're doing great," and people actually start losing their interest. It's almost as if, all that feedback for something that you already liked makes it lose its glamour. It's no longer new. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm good at it. Thanks. I already knew that. Okay. Also, if you expect rewards all the time, or if people start giving you rewards for doing something, extrinsic rewards, right, coming from the outside, that's a way to make a fun, interesting task seem like work. Okay, it was something that I was already doing. It was kind of fun. Now I'm doing it for the reward. Now I have to work for it. And then people are like, no, I don't want to have to work hard for, a pat on the back. And also the reward creates an expectation of a reward. So if I get no reward, or if you stop giving me that external reward, then I don't have to do this anymore. Okay, this is interesting for teachers as well, that sometimes you think that you're doing sometimes you think you're helping your students by giving them a lot of positive feedback, and it can backfire. Okay, because then students start expecting the reward all the time, and that one day that you didn't give the positive feedback, and sometimes you have to give bad news and say, well, you didn't do too well. Then the students say, well, then I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm only going to do it if I get the positive reward. Also, intrinsic. So that's the one that everybody says is great, right? So this is where doing the task or achievement is the reward in itself. So just the fact that I'm learning the language, I'm doing something positive, that's enough of a reward. So it's an internal or intrinsic motivation. Internal rewards are generally self-regulated and within your control, which is good. Okay, you are the one in control of, how you feel about accomplishing the task. Okay, you don't need somebody from the outside to tell you you're doing a good job. You can assess that on your own. It also can lead to self-determination. Okay, again, I don't need to wait for you to tell me to do something. I'm going to go ahead and start doing it. I'm determined to do it. It's coming from the inside. I'm not going to stop until I'm done. Not because you're telling me to, because I get the reward of accomplishing the task. And of course, within all that, intrinsic motivation can lead to mastery. Remember, mastery itself is the reward. So you're goal-oriented. You want to achieve your goal. And to do that, you need to master whatever task you're trying to accomplish. In language learning, of course, if you're intrinsically motivated to do well, to learn the language, to be able to speak to people that speak the language, to your friends, or to help your child, you will do whatever it takes for you to learn the language and to learn it well, because that's your motivation. That's the reward that you get back, regardless if somebody tells you you're doing well. So Ellison said that she doesn't want to spend money on courses and stuff. She wants to do it on your own. So you need to be intrinsically motivated. You have to give yourself the reward by accomplishing what you're setting out to do. And because nobody will be telling you, oh, you're doing so great. You need to tell yourself, you need to believe in yourself and say, no, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm doing good. The downside to intrinsic motivation, and this is for me here, is a big one as a college professor teaching ESL, that sometimes your intrinsic motivation can become unrealistic. I think it's part, at least in American culture, there's this big thing about, motivating yourself, and you have all these motivational speakers. People, even pay for courses. They go to workshops to enhance your self-esteem and to be goal-oriented and, to be a go-getter. And the problem with that is that sometimes people start believing that they can accomplish anything. So it becomes unrealistic. Oh, I want to learn 100 words every day, and I want to be fluent in Chinese in a year, and I'm going to work. Well, if the goal is unrealistic and you fail, you go really high up in your expectation, and when you fall, it hurts, right? Also, a lot of people visualize on the end goal. They can see the end goal, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get there. However, they do not focus on the steps you need to get there, the possible challenges to get there, and the strategies that you need to use to get there. It's almost like it becomes an obsession. You're intrinsically motivated, which is great, but it becomes such an obsession, so unrealistic and so obsessive that, it's like you have blinders on. You can't see anything. All you can see is your goal. So you're not thinking clearly. You don't stop and take a step back, self-evaluate, and see, well, for me to get from here to here, I can go from not knowing the language to being completely fluent in a year without taking all these steps in between. Okay, so what are the steps I need to take? And sometimes you realize that, oh yeah, there are many steps, so this goal may be unrealistic. Let me adjust my goal, maybe not in a year, but maybe in 5 years, I'll get to where I want to get. Or you learn to strategize. You look at, this is where I need to get. I don't care if it takes 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. My first step will be going from here to here. Maybe that will take a month or 2 months or 6 months. So you break the task down into steps, and you overcome the challenges. You foresee challenges before they come, and you use the correct strategies to get there. Okay, and if it takes, like I said, if it takes 5 years, you got there. Okay, because you had realistic expectations to start with. So careful with all this intrinsic motivation. And sometimes, I see that it's not really students or language learners' fault, but it's, the messages that they keep getting from the outside. Learn English in 30 days, without, working very hard, or, buy my method, buy my book, and you will learn 1,000 words a day. And I'm like, what, really? Do you really want to do that? All right, back to you guys. So this goal, a lot of people say that, right? When I ask them, what do you want to accomplish in your language learning? they say, oh, I want to achieve a native speaker level. I want to speak like a native speaker. I want to be able to understand native speakers. So when this is a goal in your language learning, do you think this goal is good or bad? What is good about wanting to achieve this level? What is bad about wanting to achieve this level? What do you think? If you didn't understand the question, I will repeat it. Sorry about the robot. Every time somebody subscribes, it sends out a message. Maybe you should stop doing that. I'm so happy. Now I'm getting so many subscribers that the robot is going crazy there. Yay! What about the robot? Okay, so what do you guys think? So, oh, I want to, speak like a native. Is that a good goal, bad goal? What's good about it? What's bad about it? So Ellison says, for someone who wants to be a native speaker, remember you already you already are a native speaker in your own native language. Yeah. So that's what you get, right? Your native language. Okay, Harry, we need to talk about your personal goal of becoming, sounding like a native speaker or achieving that level. So what do you think is good about having that goal, that expectation that, I want to achieve native speaker level? What's good about it? You guys thinking? Let me change this a little bit. The good thing about it is that it takes your max effort and energy. So it's a big goal, so you have to work really hard towards it. Okay? But what's bad about it? Do you have that much energy, and how much effort do you think is needed for you to become a native speaker? And it depends on how long, right? Because I hear people saying, oh, I'm learning this language and I want to sound like a native speaker after like a year. Okay. So if you sound like a native speaker, they can understand you better. Yeah, or they can understand you just fine if your pronunciation is good, right? Do people need to sound like a native speaker when they speak to be understood? Okay, you can have good pronunciation, good grammar, good, fluency in a language, but still sound like you're from Brazil or from Italy or from Mexico or wherever. Okay, I'm not trying to demotivate demotivate anyone, but just be very careful with this level because what I just said here, right? Sometimes it can become unrealistic. There's nothing wrong with having a high goal. Like who said that? Autopilot said, it forces you to put a lot of time and effort into what you're doing, but just be careful about becoming unrealistic about it to the point that you keep failing and failing and failing until you just give up. And that's worse than speaking with an accent. I would much rather have students learning slowly, speaking with an accent, their own beautiful, beautiful, beautiful accents, okay? But they're still learning and they're still making progress. Then someone who says, I don't sound, I've been learning, this language for 5 years and I still have an accent. I'm going to stop. I'm not going to learn it anymore. Okay? Or losing your interest and going like, I don't care anymore about anything because, I wasn't able to achieve this unrealistic goal. Just be careful about it. It's okay if that's what you want in the long run, but just be very careful about it. Okay? I think I will never achieve that level, and it isn't my goal actually. I'm still learning Italian, my native language. Yes, you're still learning your native language. Okay? You can always learn something new, always get a little better. And if you're learning a second language, you probably started when you were a teenager or something, and just be careful, okay? Also, what is a native speaker? When you say, I want to sound like a native speaker, okay? Because you have native speakers. I'm going to say this in a very gentle way. I don't mean to be like totally judgmental, okay? But there are native speakers that don't speak the language very well, whatever that means, okay? They don't have good vocabulary. They don't have a good grasp of, standard grammar and non-standard grammar. They don't communicate very well because their linguistic experience is limited, maybe limited to their social group, as opposed to another native speaker who can, move from, from different levels of formality and informality. Someone who can speak to, someone at the grocery store and then go to a college level course and, defend a thesis in the language, and you can read, the newspaper. So when you say I want to be like a native speaker, well, what is a native speaker? How does a native speaker communicate? And what Sylvia said, I'm still learning my language. People are not born being able to, for example, go to college and give a speech in formal academic English. You have to learn that. And you don't learn that as a child. You learn that when you go to college and you start learning and learning. So you keep learning all the time. So that's a really good comment, Sylvia. Thank you. Appreciate it. Nick Smith says, no need to sound like a native. Yeah, I mean, if you want to have that goal, I'm okay. Good luck with that. But there are more important things in the language that will help you communicate much better than just, how you sound. I mean, everything is important in the language, and you have to keep, learning, the grammar, vocabulary, the pronunciation, the rhythm of the language. Learning a language is very, very, very complex. It's a very, very complex human achievement. Okay, children take years to be able to communicate, more or less effective in the language. And as Sylvia said, she's still learning the language. So just be careful. Check your motives. Check your expectations very carefully. Okay, we're almost done. All right, so my recommendations. What I'd like for you to get out of this whole conversation is that, I taught you a few things about motivations. We chatted a little bit about, good and bad motivations. Now you need to reflect on your motivations. Okay, I can do it. You can't do it in, like an hour during the live stream. Okay, you need to do the work yourself if you're interested. So my recommendation is, reflect on your motivations. Okay, remember we talked about integrative motivations, where you want to actually integrate into the culture, talk to friends in that language, maybe travel to that country, and be with people that speak the language. And you can also have an instrumental motivation where you just want to learn it. I just want to learn it out of intellectual curiosity. I want to know the grammar, and that's that. So look at your target language. If you're learning English or French or Spanish or whatever, how would you look at your motivation as integrative or instrumental? What's good about it in your motivation, and what's good about it in your motivation? Like what we just talked about related to intrinsic and extrinsic. Oh, I want to sound like a native speaker. Okay. Is it extrinsic? Is it something you want to do for yourself? It will give you pleasure. Okay. Then what happens if you work on it really, 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 really hard, and then you talk to a native speaker and they go, "Oh, where are you from? I hear an accent." You go, "Oh no, I'm going to stop learning. I'll never learn this language again." Okay, so look at your intrinsic motivations. What are the internal rewards for you? Self-accomplishment. What do you expect? Are they realistic, unrealistic? What's good about it? What's bad about it? And your extrinsic, what feedback do you expect to get? What rewards are you getting now in your language learning? Also reflect. Let me change back to so you can see it better. Reflect on your attitudes towards the target language. Do you have positive attitudes towards learning the language? Negative? Have you always had positive or negative attitudes? Have you been developing a negative attitude towards learning the language? What are your expectations and goals? You guys seem to really know, what your expectations are and everything. So it should be easy for you to do this. Look at your expectations. What are your goals? How does all that fit into motivational factors? Make a list of the steps that you can take to achieve the goal. So was it Harry said, "Oh, I want to sound like a native speaker"? Well, what are the steps that you need to take to achieve that goal, to sound like a native speaker or to speak like a native speaker? Maybe if you look at the steps, you'll see, well, I have a lot of ground to cover, so I can't expect, tomorrow I'll sound like a native speaker. No, I need to take all these steps. So each step that I achieve will be an achievement. Okay. What are the possible challenges? What are things that could get in the way? How can I solve these possible challenges? What strategies can I use to, accomplish my goal? Maybe faster. I want to improve my grammar. I'm going to go to Snap Language and watch the grammar videos and take notes and pay attention. Oh, my vocabulary. Okay, Snap Language has videos. I have to do a little commercial here. And make a list of things that you're happy with in your language learning. Things that are like, there's nothing wrong with the way I'm doing this. I'm happy with it. That you're unhappy with. Things that you are unhappy with. Last session, when I asked what you were unhappy with, people started responding really, really quickly. Well, if you're unhappy with something, how can you change it? Realistically, what can you do about it? How does that align with your expectations, motives, and rewards? Okay, so for example, I want to learn more vocabulary, so I want to learn 100 plus words every day. Check your expectation. Is that even possible? Okay, why do you want to learn 100 words every day? And what reward are you going to get from it? I'm going to be able to communicate better. Okay, so can I learn maybe 10 words a day or 100 words a week? If you think, this is crazy, nobody has this expectation, right? Well, I cut the person's face out because I don't want to show who this is, but I found this on YouTube today. Learn 1,000 new words a day. 1,000. But then the title says how to learn 100 plus words a day. Basically, this is like creating a terrible, terrible expectation for people that think, I can do this. I can learn 100 plus words every day. That's a lot of words, right? And then they try it, they can't do it, they feel like a failure, they feel demotivated. Okay, so just be careful. So do you, right now, whatever language you're learning, do you feel that you're working hard on it? And when when you think about learning your language, how do you feel about it? Is it like, I have to learn English today, or I have to practice French, or are you like really excited about it? See, Adriana said a native speaker from England, US, Australia, yeah, Jamaica. Everybody has an accent. Adriana, thank you. Everybody has an accent. Just come to the United States, and people say, "Oh, American accent." I go, "American accent, like Southern American from Texas, from Mississippi, from Arkansas, or Northeastern, from New York, from New Jersey, from California." What American accent? Everybody has an accent. Writing like a native, different. Well, writing and speaking are somewhat different activities. You have a little more control when you write, because you can go back and revise things. You can look things up, make sure the grammar is okay. So I think achieving native-like fluency in writing is maybe a little easier. It's hard, but it's easier than in speaking like a native. Because speaking, like if you want to speak fluently, you don't have much time to think and think of the grammar. You lose fluency if you stop to think about what you're saying. You need to have ready vocabulary, and you have to sing the song of the language. Each language has a certain music to it. And then, as Adriana said, it's like you have all these different accents. What accent are you going to work on? Are you going to work on, British English? Well, British English is a number of different accents too. So writing is more controlled, but it's not easy. It's not easy either. Anybody else? Okay, guys get quiet all of a sudden. Let me jump to the bottom here because we're running like an hour now. So the bottom line that I really like for everybody to get out of this is take control of your language learning experience, of your second language learning experience. A lot of people expect an instructor, oh, teacher, tell me what to do, tell me how I do it, which is okay. Sometimes you need guidance, right? But at some point, you need to stop and think, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What are my motives? Or, what kind of motivation do I have here? Is this working? Are my expectations too high? Okay, so I would like for you to use what you learned about motivation in this session and make necessary adjustments. Just think about it. Maybe I need to adjust this or that. So, I didn't realize that this motivation kind of negative. It's not a very good motivation to have. It's maybe even holding me back instead of helping. Well, then set new goals. Rethink things and set new goals. But wait a minute. How do I do that? Aha! So we'll talk about it in the next session. We'll talk about setting goals and following through with them. Setting realistic goals. How? Well, by becoming aware of your motives. We've already laid the groundwork in this session. Also looking at the resources you have, your personal situation. Remember, each person is different. What works for me may not work for somebody else, but I will give you the tools to set realistic goals. We'll also talk about assessing your progress and making corrections as needed, not because your instructor is telling you need to make some corrections, but because you're a smart person and you know what you need to do. You reflected on it. And finally following through with your goals. Okay, so that will be for the next session. We have any other questions here? Uh, studying English makes me feel. Let me go back to. See, Harry, studying English makes me feel great. Great. Hold on to that feeling, okay? If it makes you feel good, look at what makes you feel good about it, and keep doing it until it stops working. If it stops working, well, maybe you need to rethink, do something a little bit differently. Because sometimes we kind of burn out and we need to kind of switch gears. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next session. I'm working hard. I'm working hard on my L2 by watching lots of YouTube videos, snap language, and trying to learn idioms and to use natural expressions when talking. That's good. You're doing what you need to do. I think watching videos is a great way to do it. I hear a lot of people complain, say, "Oh, I can't learn English, for example, or French or German or whatever." Let's say German. "Oh, I can't learn German because, I don't have any Germans that I can talk to." Well, yeah, that's true. That would be nice to have people around you speaking the language. But man, go to YouTube. You have great German channels. And sometimes it doesn't have to be an educational channel. It could be like, "Oh, I like cooking." Okay, I like cooking. So I'm going to go to a German cooking channel on YouTube and just watch it. So I'm learning how to cook and I'm learning German at the same time. So, we'll talk about creating your own resources, using what's out there to create your own resources in one of the future sessions. Giving up is the unique true flaw. Yeah, but listen, sometimes people give up and they don't even know why they gave up. And that's why sometimes it's important to do what I was recommending. You kind of look at yourself, look at your behavior to see why you got to that point that you felt that you had to give up on something. Pablo, it is good to want to achieve native-like level because it motivates you to work hard. However, thank you for that. However, for most people, this is unrealistic. It's a goal. It's just a goal, okay? I want to get closer and closer. So instead of saying, I want to sound just like a native speaker, think in terms of, I want to get closer and closer and closer to a native speaker, if that's what you want, okay? I think that's more realistic because then, again, each step you take, every time you do a little better, it feels like an accomplishment. You don't feel like, "Oh, I've been trying so hard for 2 years and people still say I have an accent." Yeah, it's only 2 years, okay? All right, so if we don't have anything else. All right, so I'm closing here. Guys, I'm so excited that there were so many people, more people than I expected. Thank you so much for participating. Don't forget to do the whole YouTube thing. If you'd like, you can go visit my website. I'm adding new information there all the time. Twitter, Instagram. Sylvia, go say hi on Instagram sometime. When I post something. And please consider joining the channel. I really enjoy what I'm doing, but I have to make it. I have to pay the bills, essentially. I'm really appreciative that I've had people that already joined the channel, and just consider it. Okay, you get some perks out of it. You get to join a community, and you're helping your favorite channel. All right. All right. Thank you guys so much. See you next Saturday.